Good morning, and thank you for joining us. With us today, we have Mayor Darren Caniff, Chief Administrative Officer Don Shropshire, Thomas Kelly, General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering, Chris Case, our Fire and Emergency Services Chief, April Rydek, our General Manager of Community Human Services. And from the province, we have Jennifer Barton, Assistant Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry, Ian Kerr, Regional Director, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housings may be joining us. Helen Collins, Municipal Services Director, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and Sean McFarland, Investigation Project Manager of Golder Associates, the lead technician consulting working with the province and the municipality. The agenda for today's meeting: opening remarks from Mayor Caniff. We'll be receiving an update on the technical work completed on site and the work plan going forward. Assessing properties in the evacuation area, an update on supports being provided to residents within the evacuation area. And we'll be having a questions session, which will be answering the questions of the public. Please note that we are giving priority to questions submitted by residents and business owners in the evacuation zone. Therefore, questions submitted by them prior to today's session and those submitted questions during this virtual session will have priority. For those of you submitting questions through Facebook and YouTube, we ask that you indicate if you are one of those affected in the evacuation zone so that we can give your questions priority. Mayor Caniff.
Thanks for joining us. We're here this morning to bring you the most up-to-date factual information we have on the investigation and ongoing efforts since the explosion last August. You're going to be hearing from provincial and municipal officials about what they've done and, more importantly, what will be taking place in the days to come. Yesterday, we reached out to 34 businesses and not-for-profit groups in the area with news of Phase 2 provincial funding for their operation. We are meeting with each one individually. In today's session, we'll also be discussing ongoing support for residents, as well as access to homes and businesses. I know that many residents are feeling alone and facing the current challenges. You've suffered the loss of your home and many of your possessions through no fault of your own. We want to hear your concerns. We want to do whatever we can, and listening is a large part of that. Virtual meetings are not best suited to this type of discussion. We will hold in-person meetings in Wheatley as soon as we can, where we can meet face-to-face. As Premier Ford said in his visit to Wheatley last September, we want the families and businesses that have been affected by this incident to know that our government has their backs. Our council and municipal team will continue to support our residents until we've overcome these challenges. It has been our goal since the state of emergency was declared to find the cause of the emissions and a way for you to return to your homes and businesses when it is safe to do so. That hasn't changed. I will now turn things over to Jennifer Barton, Assistant Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just want to make sure, Amy, you can hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I am pleased to be here this morning and to provide an update on the investigation and the next steps, including remediation timelines. Since last November, I think that was the last time we were all together, there has been a large amount of work and investigation carried out at the site to identify sources of gas and subsurface structures. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. Investigators have identified and vented 3 wells where either methane or H2S gas were present. And these were the results of all these efforts that have happened since November. Right now, the investigation team is confident that it understands how gas entered the Pogue restaurant. However, before the mitigation can begin, investigators must fully identify the gas's source and its pathways to the surface. And this is the work that is still in progress. To finalize the investigation plan, the following pieces of work will still be required. The investigation team is going to be working on gas sampling, analysis, and modeling to determine where the gas is from and whether it's from a single source or from multiple pathways. There's going to be further assessments at 2 of the areas of potential environmental concern. So if you remember back to November, we described 3 areas that our investigation team was looking into. So they will be doing further assessment at 2 of those areas. They will be looking at APEC 1, which was the site of the explosion, as well as APEC 3 to determine the type and the condition of each well, which will support the development of mitigation options. The investigation team will also be doing some gas probe installations, so they'll be able to determine whether other gas wells exist or there are any other areas of environmental concern that we should be concerned about. In addition to these investigations, the team will also carry out a Tate well interference test. So that is the area at APEC 2, the known gas well that was under the municipal parking lot. That Tate well interference test will be to determine whether the plugged Tate well is leaking gas or if the observed gas at APEC 2 is from another source. The team will also be installing 2 monitoring wells. One will be inside the investigation area and another one just outside the evacuation zone to allow the investigation team to obtain groundwater and gas samples to support the work they're doing around both analyzing the gas and the chemical modeling work. After the results of these activities are known, the team does expect to identify the most appropriate mitigation options, which could include plugging 1 or more of the wells. The work that I've described today is in various stages of implementation, and we believe that the remaining investigation activities that need to occur will take approximately 8 additional weeks. Once completed, the investigation team and our expert team of consultants will be identifying the mitigation or remediation options, and we believe it will take approximately 6 weeks for that mitigation to be completed. Our government and the municipality continue to balance the sense of urgency to resolve this situation with the need to do so in a safe, scientifically sound manner that creates a long-term solution for your community. Our government's goal is to support the municipality in getting displaced residents back home and businesses back to work as quickly and as safely as possible. I want to just extend my thanks to all of you for your continuing patience as we work through this investigation, and to the entire team that's working on this investigation. We understand there's a number of, we especially want to recognize those impacted residents and the business community in Wheatley who continues to be displaced because of the work that's going on. And you have our commitment that we will get to the end of this investigation as soon as possible and have folks move back into their homes and into their businesses. I'm going to stop here, and I'm happy to take questions later on, but I do want to now turn it over to my colleague from the provincial government, Helen Collins. Helen is from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and she's going to talk about some of the supports that individuals have been receiving since we started this work in Wheatley. So over to you, Helen.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for the opportunity to join today's meeting. I want to assure you that we're here to listen and understand your concerns, and I know each of you is facing challenges in various ways. Your personal situations are all different, and it's impossible for anyone on the outside to really know your experience. But I do recognize that you're all facing difficulties and you're all experiencing hardship. What I can say is I'll do my best to provide you the most accurate and up-to-date information I have and to be upfront and factual. So with that said, building on Jennifer's presentation about the work the province is doing to support your community, I'm here to provide an update on the Wheatley Residents Assistance Program. As you know, this program is one element of the supports the province has put in place for the community of Wheatley and the municipality of Chatham-Kent. We have made payments to all evacuated households who have applied under the program, and we are continuing to make payments almost every day. So as you know, the program has two components. All the households in the evacuation area can receive a lump sum to help with emergency expenses. That amount is $3,000 plus $1,500 for each member of the household. And almost all the evacuated households have applied for and received this funding. Payments are ranging from $4,500 for one person households, all the way to $15,000 for the largest households. And that is largely complete, with most people having applied. The second component offers extra assistance to households with additional housing costs that were not covered by insurance or are not being covered by insurance. So under the program guidelines, applicants who apply for additional housing assistance and have a homeowner or a tenant insurance policy have to submit a claim to their insurer before submitting an application under our program. And any insurance payments received are deducted from the amount paid under this component of the program. I understand some of you have concerns with the deduction of insurance payments. We do hear your concerns, but I do need to say that disaster assistance programs across Canada are designed in this way. The reason is that we want government assistance to be provided in cases where the insurance is not available. So in the case of this program, we do have a lump sum available to everyone with no deductions, but the additional housing assistance component is intended to be targeted to those who don't have insurance or not enough insurance. Another point I would like to address, because I know it is a big concern, is that the Wheatley Residents Assistance Program is currently in place until March 31st. When the program was set up, our understanding was that residents would be able to return to their homes before that time. Now that we're learning this isn't the case, I do want to let you know we recognize that there may be a need to look at that program timeline. So we're committed to continuing to work with the municipality to ensure that all residents receive all the payments that you are eligible for under the program. And we will also continue to work with our partner ministries and municipality to understand the timeline for residents to return so that we can assess the timeline for the program. So again, I want to reiterate, I do recognize the huge challenges all of you are facing and that we do hear your concerns. I know it's not easy. And we're certainly committed to providing you the latest information and the most accurate information we have, and also to making payments to you as quickly as we can. And I will be happy to answer further questions during the question period. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen, for your update. We'll now be moving on to our question and answer period. I'm going to be bringing in Chief Chris Case for our first question. Chief Case, I've received several questions with the same theme. I'd like to acknowledge receiving questions on the reduction of the evacuation zone from Barb, Doug, Rob, Erica, and Raya. And if there's time near the end of the broadcast, I will be asking their questions individually. But the question is, now that the gas is being vented, is it possible for the evacuation perimeter to be reevaluated and reduced, thereby allowing businesses and homes to be allowed back, and who may currently be looking at alternative locations to return to their current place of business? Chief Case?
Thank you, moderator, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for the question. So it's worth knowing that we have a number of zones around this evacuation. So the evacuation zone is the thing that interests the people who have been displaced from their homes. But it's worth noting that we also have a zone which is a kilometre around Wheatley, where we visited everybody's house in case the evacuation zone would have to increase. And that's been our concern from the start. And at the start of every technical meeting, the fire chief who is attending that meeting will ask the question, is the evacuation zone still safe and sufficient? And right now, we're confident that the site is safer than it's been since this event started. And that really does remove our concerns about the people who live very close to the area. We're confident that the evacuation zone is safe. As for reducing it, that is being considered on nearly every technical meeting. And again, the first question we always ask is the scene safe? You know, do we need to change it? So I can assure everybody that there is nothing that our teams and your firefighters want more than to get people back in their homes. We're still on scene 24 hours a day. We're still protecting the site, and we're still helping people get into their homes and to try and winterize, get their belongings and everything else. But I can assure everybody that the minute that we're given the agreement of the engineering team, which is a very big team, the minute those engineers give us the agreement and that they give us that notification that it should be reduced, that's exactly what will happen. It will happen as quickly as possible. So thank you for the question, and be assured we are still working to keep everybody safe.
Thank you, Chief Case. I'll now bring Jennifer back into our conversation. So there were many questions on when people can return back to their homes. And I know at the beginning of our session, you had provided an update on the number of weeks for each step in the process. But very specifically, I want to make sure that the following people are able to have their question heard and for you to be able to provide an answer. So the question is, when they can return to their home. Sharon, Kelly, Becky, Brittany, and Margaret want to know, is there a timeline for us to return to their homes? And is there a possibility they will be back into their homes by this summer? I know you had mentioned the number of weeks assigned to each step. Is there a way that we can maybe extrapolate as to what that is on the calendar?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I know it was a popular one coming in those advanced questions. So I can say a few things about that. There, as I mentioned in my update earlier, there are several steps remaining in the investigation. The process does remain quite complex, and the results of each step actually help us determine what additional investigation work might be necessary, or if we can continue just to, adhere to and move ahead with the existing work program and the timelines associated with that. So in my update earlier, I mentioned that we're estimating right now about 8 additional weeks of investigative work that need to happen. And at the end of those 8 weeks, the expert consulting team is meant to provide mitigation options. Those mitigation options are estimated to take about 6 weeks to complete. So we are absolutely committed to, working to resolve everything as quickly as possible. And those timelines may shrink if everything goes well and we're able to move forward quickly. But that's the best sort of sense of a timeline that we can give you at this point. It is a slow and it's a methodical process, but that is very intentional that it moves slowly and methodically so that we can ensure not only the health and safety of those folks who are working in that, what we call the hot zone, but also to make sure that the community is safe, that you're all safe to return, and that when we get to the end of the investigation, we have all the information we need to be able to work with the municipality, and as Chief Case just talked about, to be able to reduce that evacuation zone in an appropriate way until everybody feels comfortable with folks returning to their residences and their businesses. So 8 weeks and 6 weeks, it does take us into May. And at that point, there will be some additional steps that are required. And I know we've been working closely with the municipality to map out the reconnecting of the utilities, schedules and plans to get everybody back to their homes. So that's the update at this point, and that's the best timeline I can provide right now, but a little bit more difficult to provide an exact date.
Thank you, Jennifer. I will be bringing Thomas Kelly, our General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering, back into the conversation. Just before I ask the question, just want to let those watching on Facebook and YouTube, Joe on Facebook, as well as Dave, Doug, and Terry, and then also on YouTube, Joe, who are submitting questions. We had questions submitted prior from those that are evacuated, and we're going to try to get through their questions. And then as we have time, to try to fit yours in as well. So the question for Thomas, Becky would like to know, on top of this, has our home been winterized? If not, when?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thomas Kelly, General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering Services for the municipality. So unfortunately, Becky did not give an address, but we went back to our list. And if it is the Rebecca that lives at 48 Foster, I'm happy to report that her home has been winterized along with her pool. And if that is not the Becky that submitted the question, I would ask that you call 311 and we'll certainly get an answer for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Keeping with you, Margaret would like to know, has Chatham-Kent changed the locks or deadbolts on their homes?
Thank you for the question. So I described back on November 3rd the two-step process, and the two-step process was to give for the owners to provide us with a key and a letter of support, basically, that we can go forward and enter the home so that we could verify that the home was safe to enter. Of all of those properties that did that, we went through with a first inspection and then followed it with the home visit. Once the home visit was completed, the doors were locked, and the deadbolts, any of the keys were not changed. Some owners asked us to keep the key with the anticipation of scheduling winterization. Others took their key with them. So that's we did not change any of the locks for this particular request. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. I'm going to stay with you since I already have you on screen. So Becky wanted to know that her home is being destroyed by water and mold, but we need to get our photo albums and pictures out before they are no longer salvageable. The crew that you hired told my husband they weren't essential, but they're essential to us. We have called every week to no avail, and that they're on the computer list and still waiting. They want to know, is there any way to get into the homes for the non-essential but precious memories?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. We certainly sympathize and would like to make this happen as quickly as possible. I wanted to describe, first of all, just the process. And at any one time, especially when we're doing work on site, it is not safe to enter the site except for those who've been approved. We can have 25 people on site when this work is happening. And anytime that work is happening, we do not allow any home owner access or business access. We have now made it through, there's about 110 properties who've given us permission to enter their homes and go through that two-step process. And right now, as of Friday, yesterday, there are only 8 homes remaining. And after this weekend, there will be only 3 homes remaining. And that's because of scheduling challenges. So now we're at a point that our first priority was to allow everyone at least one access back into their home. And after that, after this weekend, that'll essentially be done. So we are now looking at, for those who wish to enter a second time, like this request, to get other pieces of valuable assets from your home, we will start scheduling those effective Monday. That's our plan. So the process would be very similar. You just call our 311 number and let them know that you're interested in a second visit, and we'll do our best to accommodate that. Again, we only allow you on site when it is safe to do so. So if there's construction going on site, that is off limits. If there's a gas release like we had on November 21st, that held us up for 10 days, for example, we will not accommodate that. The good news is that since October of last year, the technical team have put in a lot of additional precautions that allow us to safely vent, and essentially the area is much safer, and it's as safe as it's been. So that we're very happy with. So the answer to your question is this should be coming forward very shortly. We just need to, we would like to finish those 3 at the end of the weekend, but that's been a scheduling issue, mainly from the homeowner. And we'll be moving forward next week with those second visits as we can accommodate them. Again, the priority is still, as Jennifer mentioned, we want to get the construction work done and to move forward in the solution. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. I know we had a question earlier about winterization, and so thinking that this might be a good time to go to a question that's currently on Facebook. Joe would like to know, what happened to properties that did not get winterized? Do we know if there was any damage that maybe have occurred from frozen or busted water lines?
Thanks again for the question. So we were able to get through approximately 1/3 of the properties and winterize those homes. You recall back on November 3rd, we had a lot of discussion on this. We had a process that was defined, and we altered that process actually based on some comments from the insurance industry. And at times that did not work out so well for us. And what happened was we had our own contractor set up, and what would happen is the homeowners would sometimes change their mind, rather than using our contractors, want to use the insurance contractors. Unfortunately, because of the safety requirements of the site, they had to go through safety training as well. So the efficiency of all of the winterizations didn't happen the way we wanted to. And also winterization is strictly weather dependent. So come December, mid-December, certainly the weather turned colder. And unfortunately, there are many homes that could not get winterized. And as a result, we have not looked at those homes. We don't enter your property without your permission. So I cannot answer the question if there's any damage. I will say that I wanted to be very clear that all of the water was shut off at the curb. So there's no water pressure entering your home. So if you can imagine the current state right now is that you have the municipal supply of water at the curb. It's underground about 5 feet, and that enters your home either through the crawl space or through your basement. And that's where the freezing would occur is once it hits basically the atmosphere or ground level or your basement. So that's the issue that will be that there's no heat to your home. So as a result, there's going to be a freezing of the water lines. It's something that everyone's going to have to look at once they get back into their homes, as well as the electricity has been off on your homes. So if you have basements and you have sump pumps, certainly I've seen questions on this as well, that there's going to be certainly some risks of mold and mildew and even potentially some water left over that's going to be in your basement. So that's where we stand as far as we haven't assessed any further homes with respect to any damage. But that is something that certainly will be done in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm going to bring Dawn in onto the conversation now. Dawn, question from Amanda and Brittany. Is there ever going to be an option for the municipality to buy our house and allow people to get on with their lives instead of being stuck in limbo? And Stephanie would like to know, will the municipality commit to developing and offering some kind of resolution for the future of our residents and property that we can finally make some decisions and move on with our lives?
Good morning, everyone. So I'll be direct and say that there is not consideration being given for the municipality or any other level of government to purchase homes. Over the past several years, we've had a number of our neighbors that have also been, their homes have also been threatened, people such as the folks along Lake Erie that have had major erosion issues, and some of the homes were destroyed. Even in those cases, they were not in a position to purchase those additional properties. So what we are trying to focus on is we recognize that the folks, especially those in the evacuation area, but the community as a whole, people are facing huge hardship. And the focus of the municipality has been and will continue to be on ensuring the safety of the community and to also look for every opportunity to provide financial support to carry both our residents and our businesses that have been displaced from their properties. So that's the commitment we have, but there is no intent to purchase homes in the area. Those are things that people have to consider their own future plans as a result of that. Tough decisions for sure, but I think it leads into Stephanie's question. We are trying to develop a plan. I think what Jennifer pointed out in her initial briefing, for us to be able to make a plan that makes sense to the community, we have to know what is the source of the gas emissions, and is there any possibility to reduce or mitigate future gas emissions that might threaten the community. Longtime residents of Wheatley will already be aware that we've had a series of gas emissions that have had some devastating consequences over the years. Certainly there's reports in the 1930s. We have additional concerns being expressed in the 1960s and the 1990s. So kudos to the province. They've stepped up when there was no plans in place. They've created an opportunity for them to go in and do a very thorough investigation and to try and get to the bottom of what is the threat to the community. Any planning we do has to be looked at through the lens of what's the threat, and is there a way to get rid of it so we can have people move safely back into their properties. So that is our plan, and as we committed to at the beginning with the mayor's comments, we'll make sure that information is shared. But I also want to point out that any planning we do, it has to be in consultation with the property owners. This is not just a government situation. I mean, the community as a whole has to be at the table and making decisions as to what makes sense for you. And the commitment we'll make is there will be future discussions, both individually and as a community, so we can take those steps together. And a lot of that information is going to be informed by what the engineering team finds on the site and determines what can be done to reduce or eliminate any future threats. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Don. Another question for you, Linda's, is her question is regarding tax bills that were recently sent out, and she's wondering why we're getting a tax bill at all when we are not able to live in our homes or benefit from any of the taxable services they provide. I realize you reduced them by 5/12, but you have reduced access to our property by 12/12. In addition, we pay all of our taxes last year early before the explosion happened. When will we be getting a 5/12 refund on 4 months of taxes paid?
At a recent meeting of Council, Gord Quinton, our Chief Financial Officer, addressed a very similar question. And what the municipality has done is we have all the people in the displaced area that have been evacuated, both businesses and property owners, residents, have been given a tax credit. And they've also been assured that there's no interest on any arrears. What we're going to be doing as administration, and with, I believe, the full support of our municipal council, is to come back and to look at the impact on the taxpayers when we know how long they'll have been out in total. Based on the previous decisions, I don't think there's any intent to try and charge people if they haven't been able to have any access to their property. But what has been done to date is all of last year's property taxes, there was a credit, and there's no expectation that there's going to be those charges. We will be looking at the tax implications for 2022 and coming back to council with a recommendation as well.
Thank you, Don. This next question comes from Sharon and Kelly about communication. It was decided that an email would be sent to us 2 times a week. We would like more information, including photos, as it becomes available. Watching the council meetings for information was informative, but again, we need to remain in the loop. We didn't ask to be removed from our homes, routines, friends for over 5 months.
Right. So I've received a number of questions from both business owners and residents about the communication. So let me go back and say that we've committed to putting out regular communications. Prior to the Christmas period, we were asked to put out daily recommendations. Then we got some feedback to say, please don't put out a report every day if there's nothing new to report. So we have been trying to adjust based on the feedback from the community. But let me tell you where the information is available. The first thing we're asking everyone to do that's in the evacuation area, or those that want informational updates on a regular basis, is we have an email distribution list. It has almost 800 people on the list, and we provide regular updates on anything new that's happening, both the work on the site, anything that we can share with the people. We're asking everyone to sign up. It's free of charge, of course. You can sign up on our The contact information to sign up is on our the Wheatley section of our website. That's on the front page of the municipal website. If you can't get access to that, please dial 311. Let people know that you want to be put on the list. Then you're going to get the most up-to-date regular communications. There's also all of that same information is also posted on the municipal website. On the front page of our website, there's a section that says Wheatley Emergency Response. And a number of the things that were just asked for, things like pictures of the site and so on, those have been posted there for several weeks. We did, in the last 2 months, receive more regular requests for information about what's going on the site. It's fenced off. We can't tell what's going on. We really want to get a picture of that. Working with the provincial government and the engineering team, there's been a commitment that at least twice a week we provide updates on the engineering work that's being done, including pictures. So that's all posted on the website as well. So we're asking everyone to check those sources out. We're feeling like we are trying to push the information out and give people the updates, but those are the two places where you get regular information. If there's information for the general community or there's a significant change, we also provide media releases, and our media has been very good about trying to cover those stories and make sure that there's information shared. If there's still a specific question you have as a resident, you're also been encouraged and invited to contact the municipality and ask your question. So, as recently as yesterday, we got a question from someone that had a challenge with their hot water heater, and it was a rental, and they're trying to get some concerns. That's the sort of question that if you call into the municipality, we can treat that as a specific request and try and take some steps to address that. And just for your information, that's been shared with our legal services team, and they will be reaching out to the individual with the concern, and we'll make a commitment to contact the supplier of the hot water heater and see if we can get them some relief. At the very least, what we can do is we can guarantee that people can't get access to the property because of the emergency, and that we'll be asking for them to be considerate in that regard. So although it's a private contract, we'll do whatever we can to support the community in that sort of initiative.
Thanks, Don, and thank you for talking about the water tank. So I just want to be sure that Becky had heard that the commitment of the municipalities as our legal team will reach out to Reliance and speak to them about the current situation regarding the unavailability for them to be able to return their water tank. Thank you for that. So I'm going to bring Jennifer and Sean into our conversation right now. And so one of the questions that was just submitted this morning on Facebook from Doug is, who is the expert consulting team, and to refer to them by name? Jennifer?
Excellent. Thanks, Doug, for the question. So we are working with two main consulting companies who are working with us on the investigation. We also have a number of subcontractors performing different pieces of work to further the investigative work. Golder and Associates is the lead team that we have involved in the investigative work. The Golder has expertise within the oil and gas industry, and they are leading environmental consultants who provide work right around the world. And they're bringing, in this project, they're bringing to the table different technical experts who provide skills in hydrogeology. They've got some geophysicists, they've got environmental engineers, they've got people who have experience in industry here in Ontario, but also in Alberta and across the US in the oil and gas sectors and in drilling operations. The second consulting company that we're working with is a group called TL Watson and Associates, and this group is an engineering consulting company from Alberta with extensive experience in the oil and gas sector. Their lead consultant is a lady by the name of Teresa Watson, and she's been providing technical guidance to the municipality and to the province, and has been a resource to Golder as they've been working through this very complicated situation. She's been supporting them with the development of the work plan, and also supporting us with the any safety planning that we're doing around the work on the site. And so we do have one of our expert consultants here today. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean, who's with us. Sean is the lead investigator and Golder's project management manager. And Sean, maybe if you can just describe a little bit about the work you're doing and some of the expertise that you bring to the table.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. So I think that Jennifer did a great job of covering off all the different people involved, all our engineers and scientists, our advisors, our subcontractors, and I think people may need to be aware that we have found three of the gas wells on the site, old gas wells or water wells that are emitting gas, and what we're trying to focus on right now is are they shallow water wells or are they deep gas wells? Because that'll affect the way that we mitigate them by plugging, etc. It also, we don't want to have any unintended consequences as well. So we need to be careful. Sometimes people might just plug a well up and then only to have another gas emission somewhere else. And that's why it's really important to understand the situation. So currently we're involved in an investigation where we're doing a regional gas sampling where we're characterizing the isotopes, the geochemistry of the various wells. We're doing that in conjunction with University of Windsor, a person there named Scott Mondo, who's excellent in that, and doing some modeling to determine the sources on the gas. Are they primary sources from a deep reservoir that are just emitting at surface? From example, the wells themselves, are they going sideways in the rock or at the top of rock or deeper in the rock and coming up other wells? So we're trying to, at this point, our next phase of our investigation, now that we've found the wells, unearthed them, we've tied them into separators, they're all very safe now. Now we want to determine who's feeding who, which well's the source and which one is the pathway. Are they all sources and they're just emitting independently, or is one the main source and feeding the other? So that's the focus of the next investigation. So we have the regional gas sampling to determine the reservoir characteristics, and we'll try to get a match. We're working with the OGS on that. They've got hundreds and hundreds of samples from water wells and gas wells. So that will help us to determine the source of the gas. And we believe we know where it is. We just want to understand what's the difference between the normal background emissions we're seeing in the reservoirs and what causes the emissions themselves. So that's underway. Putting some monitoring wells in to take some groundwater quality samples in there and to get some isotopes on the site, because there's no local water wells, so we've got to go and get those, and we're starting that next week. We have actually, to get to find the wells, we had to undertake a demolition of the buildings with the Golder WSP structural and construction engineers. We brought in a big firm from Toronto that could do it surgically. We could take out the buildings around the excavation at the Pogue that were a hazard. We were then able to create a pad to work from at MJ's Pizza. We pulled out the basement of the Pogue. And then we pulled out the slab behind the Wheatley Hotel, and we identified another well there. So that's going on. I won't go into the technical details of that. And then there's the well up on the corner by Erie and Elm that we had originally was thought to be a gas vent, and we got that information from M&R files and local residents. We then hydrovac'd a hole around, found a pipe under an old drainage grate. When we were told it was a vent, it turned out just to be a shallow vent put directly in the soil. We hydrovac'd a 9-foot hole, measured gas in it, found out the gas concentration was different in the hole and in other areas, and then we were able to recently identify another well up in that area. So all of this work to feed into what Jennifer has to say all requires different specialists, structural engineers, construction engineers, environmental engineers, our local subcontractors, our advisors. We have Teresa advising us as well. And all of us are working together. As Chief Case said, it's a big team. And that's what we're currently occupied with.
Thanks, Sean. So I imagine in any type of situation like this that there are so many unknowns at the beginning, and then as you continue to investigate each phase, there's some additional unknowns, and so that these next kind of questions might be difficult to answer. But Barb would like to know. Can you give any information on how long these situations generally take to resolve to the point where people are able to be allowed to return to their homes? Is this extended length of time common to situations like this?
So it's a great question, Barb. I will say that you know this is not something that we deal with regularly. This is truly an abnormal situation and an emergency incident that is not common, definitely here in Ontario. I let Sean speak to experience from other jurisdictions, whether this timeline would be similar to what others have experienced in other jurisdictions. But here in Ontario, this is really the first time we have experienced something of this nature. And and that goes back to why I spoke earlier about the investigation being such a methodical process. We do want to make sure we understand where the gas is coming from, and we're able to properly mitigate where that gas is coming from. Sean, I don't know if you've seen cases like this in other jurisdictions, and
Yeah,
there's probably
So-
no normal timeline based on, every subsurface structure is different, and every set of what's under the ground and what the sort of natural occurring situations are under the ground is probably different. But happy for you to weigh in if you have any experience in other jurisdictions with something similar.
Sure. So I think, and I'm happy to talk to any of the municipalities that I'm going to refer to. And if they have any issues with what I'm saying, but I don't think they will. You're looking at a situation in Norfolk County. That's one well. I mean, we've looked at that as well. And that is, that's been going on for like years now, and there hasn't been a solution yet. So things can get very complicated. Everyone is different. Norfolk County has its own difference as well. And you look at locally, Port Burwell. Port Burwell was one that went on for quite a while too, and a very similar situation. What complicates this one, it's a little bit different, is that it's in the middle. It's in the middle of a town, eh? So what happened is when these wells were drilled back in the late 1800s, it was more rural, and the city got built up around these wells. Now we have these wells that are really old. They were no one really knew where they were. So first of all we had to find them with community outreach to get views from the community. We've heard stories of people like running by gas wells. When people in Max Milk remember a pipe sticking out of the ground, things like that. Then we ran geophysics on it. So it took a long time to find these old wells in the subsurface as well, and identify them. And I don't think anyone really could have done it any quicker than what we did. And I guess that's up for debate, but I don't think so. And what happens now is we know where they are. We've uncovered them. We vented them, and now our last step is trying to find out what to do with them. And so the last step is what we call, the last phase of the investigation, followed by the mitigation plan themselves. So we're getting very, very close to the point where we are on our last stages of the investigation that will give us the specifics that we need to develop a permanent solution. We don't want a Band-Aid solution. We want something that's fixed and safe so people can move back into town. We don't want it reoccurring, right? So these are going to probably involve deep grouting of these wells, cementing up of the wells. There's a lot of health and safety standards that we've observed as well along the way. They haven't really slowed us down. But they've certainly augmented the process along the way. So that's why some people might say, why do you need all these people there? Well, we've had fire departments there during the early days. We had emergency response. We've got people, rescue crews sitting by with tanks on them, ready to go at all times in case there is a gas emission, and then they can pull people out. So there's rescue, there's safety plans. We've got evacuation zones around the area. We've got continual gas monitoring there as well. And we're not doing it in isolation. My job is to coordinate a team. And so we have the teams in Ontario, of course, and we also have a team that we brought in with people that are in oil country in Virginia that do these leaking casings day in, day out as part of their job. And it's a large team. They're petroleum engineers. They do specifically that. That's what they went to school for. That's what they work in, day out. So they're involved in the project as well. They're helping us. And lastly, we have a very, very competent contractor called Bradco, because you asked for specific names. And Bradco is they have the most experience in abandoning wells, I would say, in Ontario. And they're on there. There's an engineer, Frank Curry, that works with Bradco. That's excellent as well. And we have Jim McIntosh as well, who's either in between Jim and Frank, they probably drilled or abandoned the majority of the wells in the area as well. So we've got the local expertise there. We're also working with the ministry group in all the time in the petroleum group in London, and working on developing all the stages of the program as well. And we have also ministry advisors that used to do this that have now retired, and they're on retainer as well to help us, and we're getting advice from them on an ongoing basis. So that's kind of what it looks like, and that's why people might think it's taking the time, but we're doing a thorough job, and we want to end up with a permanent, safe solution so everybody can move back in with confidence. That's our goal.
Thanks, Sean. I know that those are watching are really appreciative of having you on this virtual meeting with us. There's lots of questions coming in. And I do want to eventually proceed to Helen regarding the Wheatley Resident Assistant Program. There's lots of questions about that. But if I may, just one short question for Sean before we switch themes, and we can always come back if we have time. Howard would like to know, is there an option of removal of the source has been reviewed, for example, by drilling to the source of the gas and flaring it off? I'm not sure if that's if you're able to answer that in a minute or two, but is that something?
Yeah. So I mean, we could vent it and flare it, but then there's always a flare going off in the middle of town, and there's always gas coming up. It'd probably take a long time to burn off all of that gas and everything, and there are in other jurisdictions, there certainly are vents that are occurring in the middle of town. We know that we know they're successful. What our preferred option, I think, in Ontario, and it's a ministry's option when we get a license to abandon this well under what's called the Abandoned Works Program, is to have a permanent plugging solution on there. So what we would be looking at, rather than just leaving it there and flaring in the air, we'd actually re-enter the well, drill it out to the bottom, cement it right back up again, and get rid of the leaks, so we wouldn't have to have a flare. We wouldn't have to have that as a long-term solution. Now, Howard, in the short term, we're doing something similar. What we've done, if you can visualize it, we've put in excavations around all the wells. We've got culverts around them. We've contained the gas in there, and we've got piping running through downtown, and it's flowing over into a water separator in the Pogue area down there, water gas separator, and then there's a frac tank for the water to go into. If there is excess gas, it can be flared. So we have these flares on site. We have flares that are available during drilling. So we're using that more for the short-term operations, but not the long-term solution.
Thanks, Sean. I really appreciate that for you and Jennifer. I'm going to add Helen into our conversation, and we're going to go into a different theme right now. These questions both were submitted by Sharon and Kelly regarding the Wheatley Resident Assistant Program. Why is it that it's such a complicated process for everyone, and why are many of us not receiving full compensation for rent? The ton of information we have provided only to have to pay out of pocket is ridiculous. Many of us have mortgages and can't pay rent too. What is being done to remedy this?
So thank you for the question. And maybe first, I will tackle the comment that the process is complicated. So I want to say we've been working very closely with April's team at the municipality of Chatham-Kent. And I know that the caseworkers there are working really closely with applicants to make sure that everyone gets all the assistance that they're eligible for. So if you are having difficulties with the process, I really encourage you, please do reach out to the Chatham-Kent caseworkers or our program staff. So we have an email, wheatley@ontario.ca, that we are monitoring every day and responding to every day. So please do reach out if you are having difficulties with any part of the process. And we are committed to being as flexible as possible in terms of the documentation, but there is certain information and documents that we need to calculate the payment that you're eligible for. So please do reach out and work with us if you are having difficulties with the process. The larger question about how we are calculating assistance, I think under the housing component. So I mentioned up front that our program, the Wheatley Residence Assistance Program, has two components. So there's a lump sum, and then there's an additional housing assistance component. The lump sum is available to all evacuated households, regardless of insurance coverage or any other assistance that you have received. And really the purpose of that lump sum, the reason that we included that in the program was to make sure that everyone could get help with necessities as quickly as possible. So all the evacuated households who have applied have received that. The payments, I think I mentioned up front, they range depending on the household size from $4,500 up to $15,000, but that was the part of the program that was really intended to get money into people's hands quickly. We also recognize that some households that had limited or no insurance coverage would need additional assistance because of the high cost of temporary housing, or potentially to move for the cost for moving to new permanent housing. And that's really why we created that second component of the program to provide additional housing assistance. And it is targeted to the people who don't have help from insurance. So under the program guidelines, when you apply for that additional housing assistance, if you have a homeowner or a tenant insurance policy, you must submit a claim to your insurer first before you receive assistance under that second component of our program. And any insurance payments that you receive are deducted from the payment that you get under that second component, under the additional housing component. And the purpose here really is to protect taxpayers. We want the government assistance programs to be directed to cases where insurance isn't available. It's consistent with how Ontario's regular disaster assistance programs function, as well as, in fact, the programs that exist in all the provinces all across Canada. I will say if you're paying a mortgage, you are eligible for assistance for any rent that you're paying for temporary housing if it's more than your insurance funds. So individual situations, of course, are going to vary, but we do have cases where people were not eligible for additional housing assistance at first, or they received only a small payment because their insurance settlement was subtracted, but now they're eligible and they will be eligible going forward. So it is something that that has shifted a little bit as time has gone on. So I will say for those who may not have been eligible in the early months, it is potentially something that you can receive now.
Thanks, Helen. Another question for you. Jerry and a few others have asked, their rental will be ending April 1st. The resident program ends March 31st, and many people do not want to rent to them if they're only going to be renting for a few months. What happens after April 1st?
So our situation is that our program is currently in place until March 31st. And when we set the program up, our understanding was that residents would be eligible to return to their homes before that time. So we've recently learned that's not the case. We do recognize we need to look at our program timeline. And so we are planning to work with our partner ministry and with the municipality to understand the timeline for residents to return home and to assess that. So I don't have a firm answer to that question, but I can say that we are aware that the evacuation timeline is now extended and that we are looking at how that will impact our program.
Thank you for that. Margaret, as a family who is in a rental until March 1st and have been told that they do not qualify for government funding at this time, will there be more funding for us after April 30th to cover the rental cost of another rental program? Based on what your answer was, sounds like your ministry is looking into different things to be able to continue on.
That's right. We are now looking to understand what the new timeline is for the evacuation.
Wonderful. So another question for you, Dee Lee, again, is about the Wheatley Residential Assistant Program in regards to the guidelines about insurance deductions. If the program refuses to change their guideline, will Chatham-Kent cover housing expenses that evacuees have incurred and is not recoverable from insurance or the Wheatley Resident Assistant Program? I'm going to bring our General Manager, April Rydak, in with Helen for this question. April?
Thanks, Amy. So certainly thanks to be on this Facebook Live with Helen and our provincial partners. So I'm April Rydak, General Manager, Community Human Services. I think I want to start by saying that our municipal employment and social services team is available to assist Wheatley residents who require support with accommodations or even things like transportation, food. We've assisted residents with things like laundry costs. If you are in temporary accommodations in a hotel and you don't have access to laundry, then our case managers are assisting and helping to get that set up. We may not be able to kind of cover everything, but we will do whatever we can to ensure that everyone's basic needs are met, even up to and including the team is already working with a number of residents to assist them with finding alternative accommodations. Certainly before the announcement today, it was just in that planning time of if the evacuation goes longer. But now they will be working diligently to assist any of our residents who require that. Many of our evacuated residents are already connected to a case manager. But if you are not, if you are listening to this call and you still haven't been able to connect with one of our case managers, we can make sure that happens. And you need to reach out to us either through, probably the easiest way is through 311, dialing that and asking to be connected to a case manager, and they will assist. What I would say is that as a municipality, with our community human services team, we will continue to assist residents in any way that we can. We will not allow residents to be without accommodations. We will not allow them to be without basic needs. And so, as we navigate through this next phase of the continued evacuation, our team will continue to work with all of our evacuated residents. And certainly our business team will work with evacuated businesses. And while certainly, Amy, that I'm on camera, I need to acknowledge certainly the Village Resource Center. We have been able to work in partnership. Susan Fulmer set this up, and it has been a place for residents to go. They have opened the doors to us as well, with our employment and social services case managers at the Village Resource Center. We have a provincial rep that has been attending the center. Our Wheatley Library is relocated there temporarily. We have the availability of counseling services that we have access to. And of course, certainly the food bank and the donations of household items. So if anyone requires any supports, they can certainly attend the Village Resource Center. and we will do whatever we can to make sure that their needs are met. I also need to acknowledge the work that's been done by the Wheatley Active Citizens Group. Fundraising is not easy. Distributing raised funds is even harder, and they have worked diligently to support our Wheatley community and the Wheatley residents. They bring your concerns to my team, and we meet with them on a regular basis to really hear what's happening, boots on the ground, and to continue to meet those needs. So I'll stop there, Amy, and certainly happy to answer any other questions. I just want to reiterate, we are here to assist in any way that we can.
Thanks, April. While I have you, a question from Margaret. And her question actually really resonates, I think, with a lot of people in our community as well as Southwestern Ontario. Her question is, I want to know where I'm going to go and who's going to pay for it. And the real question is, rent is triple the amount that she was paying originally. And I think that just kind of really plays into what you were just saying, that you and your team are going to ensure that people have a place to go.
For sure. Thank you, Amy. Thanks for the question. This is certainly, we are seeing an affordable housing crisis that is happening and occurring right across the province, probably across the entire country. And we are certainly seeing many, many people, both from our evacuated Wheatley residents as well as residents across Chatham-Kent, who are certainly dealing with finding an affordable place to live. So some of those things I think we hope to tackle kind of at a strategic level as we work with our provincial counterparts. We work with the federal government as well to tackle the affordable housing crisis. But for our specific Wheatley residents, this will be an issue moving forward. Rents are significantly higher now for anyone that has to relocate. And so our team will do whatever they can to assist, not only in terms of will rents be higher, the actual supply is very, very limited. And so our team is out there right now working at securing or finding, locating rental units. They're looking at Airbnbs, they're looking at cottages, they're looking at motels, hotels, in the event that any of those accommodations are required by our Wheatley evacuated citizens. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, April. This question is for Helen. Just seeing a question from Jeremy come in on Facebook, as well as a similar question from Brittany that was pre-submitted. This is regarding the provincial funding. And can the province confirm that they will not deduct payments received from insurance in the municipality for basic needs like clothes, baby cribs? And that therefore also, so I'm just trying to piece a couple of the questions together, and that the province funding to be denied until exhausted amount is received from insurance is not fair. We are fortunate to live with family, yes, but saying that there is extra hydro and water being used with 3 other people living in the house, they can't live with their family forever, and what are they expected to do? I know I kind of threw a few different things at you together. Just want to be really mindful that I try to get as many questions in as possible, but basically, with Jeremy and Brittany, I think their question is with the provincial providing funding, and then if they receive insurance, that there are some funds that have been deducted from that. So if you could maybe comment to that for us, please.
Sure, I would be happy to. So as I've mentioned, the program has 2 components. We have the lump sum component, and then we have the additional housing assistance component. And the lump sum has been paid to all the households that applied, and it was intended to help get money to everybody quickly for necessities. And as I mentioned, the amounts have ranged from $4,500 for one-person households up to $15,000 for the largest household. So that was the component of the program that was aimed at these kinds of immediate necessities. We have the additional housing component, and that one is targeted to people who either don't have insurance or don't have enough insurance. And that is why insurance payments received are deducted from the amount that we pay under that second component of the program. So as I've mentioned, the purpose here is really to protect taxpayers. The idea is that government assistance is provided in cases where insurance is not available. And it's consistent with how we run other programs. I think it's important to remember that the government assistance programs are really just one element in how in Canada we manage financial risks of disasters. And in fact, insurance is the largest source of funds for people when they are hit by disasters, both for emergency expenses and for making repairs to their homes. Specifically on the point about staying with family, so you may be eligible for payments under that additional housing component if your temporary housing costs, and we treat that as $500 a month for those staying with family, recognizing that there are costs, as you mentioned, additional hydro and so on. So if you reach the point that your temporary housing costs are larger than the insurance settlement that you received, you would become eligible for that additional housing assistance. So I hope that answers the question, Amy.
I think it does. I think that some of the questions that have been submitted are very specific questions, and those might need to be forwarded on to you and your team so that you can actually speak to the individuals and provide answers for them. I'll be moving on. Okay, thanks, Helen. So I will be bringing Don Shropshire back on with us. There's been a few questions that are from a business perspective. So one person on Facebook was just wondering, when will the municipality arrange virtual meetings for business owners? And I know that our Director of Economic Development, Stuart McFadden, and his team have been in Wheatley quite frequently. But I'll bring Don back in because I have a specific question for him, and maybe he can speak to the business aspect as well. Neil, his question is, as a landlord of a residential property in an affected area, are there any grants or other funds available? We seem to be stuck in some sort of loophole, not qualifying as a residential, not qualifying as a business, and no one has an answer for us.
Hi, Neil. Thank you for the question. I don't have that information off the top of my head. I'm going to make sure that we have your contact information. If you have not already sent Amy your email address or your telephone number, I'm going to ask if you can share that with me. You can either call it in to the 311 number and ask to be transferred to the CAO's office, or if you'd like to send me an email, my email address is dons, D-O-N-S, @chatham-kent.ca. If you'd be good enough to share that with me, I will make sure that we get back to you with an answer to your question. I also wanted to give people a brief update. The provincial government and our economic development team were able to confirm late Thursday evening that the phase 2 of the funding to support business owners had been approved, and all of the business owners, the 34 business owners in the affected area, have received a personalized email explaining the impact of the phase 2 funding for them. There will be individual follow-up starting on Monday with all of the business owners, so they'll be able to walk people through that if there's any additional questions. But we're grateful that the province was able to be flexible with that funding. It's again, as in Helen's example, this is some brand new programs that the province has stepped up and created to provide support to our businesses and our residents. So we're grateful for that. I also wanted to add one other point from a previous question about taxes. The mayor reminded me that when Gord Quinton, our CFO, made the presentation to council, he also noted that if for any reason resident in the evacuated zone have a tax credit for any reason, the municipality would be happy to reimburse people for the tax credit that they have on their system. So we're not in any, we don't intend to keep money that's not, that might be better put to use in your own pocket. So if you have a credit, then contact our taxation department, and we'd be happy to take care of that for you.
Thanks, Don. Perhaps now would be a good time to also provide maybe the contact information for the businesses to be able to connect with our economic development colleagues.
So I believe everyone that's been in the evacuation zone, all of the businesses have been in touch over the past several months with Stuart McFadden or a member of his economic development team. Stuart and his team, as I say, will be reaching out directly to the 34 businesses that have already made claims against the support provided by the provincial government. But if anybody would like to contact Stuart McFadden or a member of the economic team directly, they can call the 311 number, or they can contact Stuart McFadden, and Stuart's email address is Stuart, STEUART.McFadden, MACFADDEN, at chatham-kent.ca. Again, just contact our number and ask to speak with Stuart McFadden in Economic Development. If you have any questions, we'll make sure that we get you connected with one of his team members that can answer any of your questions.
Thanks, Don. I'm going to bring Helen in for another question. So Brittany wants to know, how are we supposed to afford rent, which is $2,000 minimum, while paying for our mortgage? Was I better off not being a responsible citizen and not having insurance at all? Do you not think we should all be treated equally? But because I had 30-day coverage for an incident, we did not ask for it nor create, we are being denied other help.
Thanks for the question. So as I mentioned, government assistance programs are really just one element of the way that we manage costs associated with disasters in Canada. And when a disaster happens, truly the largest source of funds by far for people, and that means both for emergency expenses like what people are experiencing now during this evacuation period and for repairing or replacing damaged items, the largest source of funds by far is insurance. So, government programs are really intended to fill in some gaps that exist, but they aren't intended to replace insurance. So in our case, as I've said, our program has a lump sum that's available to everyone. We do also have the additional housing assistance that is targeted to people who do not have sufficient insurance or don't have insurance available. And that is meant to provide help for temporary housing once those costs exceed your settlement from your insurance policy. And as April has said, certainly there is a very tight housing market in Ontario. Temporary housing is expensive. And under that component, we can provide you up to $4,000 a month for temporary housing if you're also paying a mortgage. It's less any insurance money that you've received. But once the total that you need to pay is greater than your insurance settlement, you will become eligible for up to $4,000 a month. So there may be cases where you were not eligible at the very start, but that you have become eligible. So I do encourage you to look at the guidelines and contact us if you do need to go back and seek additional payments under that lump sum, under the additional housing component, and we'd be very happy to look at your application again.
Thanks, Helen. I think that additional clarification is really helpful for people to know that, like you said, at the beginning, they were to, apply to insurance, receive the insurance dollars, and that gets applied to the provincial funding, but now might be eligible to receive more funds. So I appreciate that. I think another question here would be suitable for you, if I may. Terry would like to know, how long will it take for the province to now extend the funding, as the current funding is definitely going to end, before a solution? And once again, people will be forced to be out of pocket for rent. So just to distill that question down, as we were talking about, the April 1st deadline coming forward, how quickly do you think you and your team might be able to reevaluate the situation and get additional funding in place?
So I don't have a specific date that I can provide, unfortunately. But now that we understand that the evacuation period is extended, we're looking to see how we need to make adjustments. So we're certainly going to work as quickly as we can. But unfortunately, I simply don't have a specific date to provide. Obviously, it's an urgent situation for people, and something that we understand is something that we need to work on as quickly as we can.
April, do you have anything that you might be able to provide some additional information?
Yeah, thanks, Amy, for the opportunity. I just would like to say, in addition to some of the comments that Helen has shared, as a municipal general manager, our municipality, on behalf of my team, I want to reiterate that we will do whatever we can to assist residents to make sure that nobody is unsheltered. So if anyone is having difficulty in terms of their accommodations with things like transportation, with food, toiletries, all those essentials that we all need, then we need you to reach out to us. If you, like I said, if you have a case manager, reach out to your case manager. If you don't have a case manager, we can get you one who will help navigate through the system and get assistance, whether that's through our emergency assistance program, whether it is through other means. We will assist in terms of navigating through that. Residents can also reach out, like I said before, the Village Resource Center. And those guys are absolutely great at linking any concerned residents with us. So they've got direct access, and we certainly respond as quickly as we can. I have spoken with many, many residents. I too am available to speak to if any residents would like to have a conversation with me. And we can certainly see how our team can assist. So my email is April R, all lowercase, at chatham-kent.ca. So send me a note and I will return your call, and we'll see what we can do in terms of at least assisting until we get you back in your homes. Thank you.
Thank you, April and Helen. So I've seen a few questions coming in again about businesses and specifically economic development. And I see Greta has a question here. Where is the remaining money for the businesses? The $20,000 was released for each and then nothing. That doesn't equal to the $2 million promised by the province. So Greta, I'm going to be forwarding your question on to our economic development director, who is Stuart McFadden. For those who have any specific questions for economic development, Stuart can be reached at Stuart M, so STUARTM at chatham-kent.ca. As well, I'm going to bring Jennifer back into our stream. So Jennifer, I have another question about businesses for you, if I may. And that question is, will business and homes be able to rebuild in the evacuated area, or will they need to relocate to a different part of town?
Okay, great question. That's one I've had a number of people ask me already. What I would say is this. I think it's a little bit premature for us to provide an answer to that question. We do want to get to the end of the investigation. We believe that it will be safe and that we will be able to return back to the normal downtown Wheatley that everybody knows and loves and experienced in the past. But it's a bit premature. We want to make sure the experts have the time to finish the investigation and be able to provide us with their investigative information to make those decisions. The province's role is really to, as we've worked throughout the investigation with our technical consultants, to really provide that technical information to the municipality so that we have all the information, the best information possible to make informed decisions about, the existing evacuation area, as we talked about earlier in the meeting, but also what happens to that site of the explosion and that core downtown area where some of those wells have been located. So It is a good question. It's one we'll be focused on as we move forward with the rest of investigation, and it's one we'll be able to update you on once we have all the detailed information and some suggestions around mitigation from our experts.
Thank you, Jennifer. Really appreciate you fielding that question for us. And so I'm going to be bringing our Mayor Darren Caniff back into the stream so for some final comments. Just those that have questions online, we will endeavor to try to forward your questions to the appropriate departments for answering. And thank you for joining us today. And Darren Caniff.
Thanks, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. I wanted to answer the question regarding the $2 million fund for the businesses. With the latest allocation going out, I believe virtually all the $2 million will be dispersed through that, just the upcoming, but we will be dispersing the whole $2 million over time, hopefully sooner rather than later. A couple things came out today. Just I want to emphasize the province has experts from across North America working on this to get a permanent solution. We don't want to have go quickly through this and then 6 months from now be going through this all again because there's a gas leak. So I know they're working as quickly as possible with safety as priority one. We want to get you back in your homes as soon as we can safely. A lot of questions came up to say, will my support end March 31st? I can assure you that Councillor Oche, Councillor Harrigan, myself, and council will make sure that we as the municipality are there until you're safely back in your homes. I will be working with the province. I know the province wants the same thing. We talk about follow-up meetings. I'm looking forward to getting to Wheatley to have a live meeting. That's very important. We want to hear your concerns. We've been hearing them. And between now and then, if anyone has any questions, please don't sit there and not ask them. Please reach out. You got 311. There's a number of ways to reach out. Please reach out for assistance, for any questions you have, and working together, we'll get through this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren. As mentioned, thank you to those that are watching and to the counselors that have joined us. And for people submitting questions, we will forward them to the appropriate place. And again, thank you for joining us.